Hello and welcome to the I Must Ask You a Question show. I am Tim Nichols, and this is my friend Jim Bardwell, and we are here to talk about relationship marketing with you and answer your questions. And so, to tell you a little bit about me, I have 3 Million%, which is a peer advisory program, and we help business owners, entrepreneurs, and professionals learn from each other by sharing victories and challenges and experiences. And so I come to you from that approach where we just want to help you grow. Jim, tell us a little bit about what you do.
Well, thank you, Tim. Jim Bardwell. I am the Executive Director of Sales, Marketing, and Education for Fiber Protector America, the world's most technologically advanced, environmentally friendly protection system. And as I sit here right now, I am suffering from a severe case of scarf envy. My friend Tim, I don't know if he was going to tell you this or not, but Tim makes those wonderful looking scarves. Even the mechanism to hold the scarf together, he made that himself. And I tell you, I think it looks fantastic, Tim.
You know what the trick is? It's my mask. I turn it around backwards, and it's my mask for when I go into any store.
Wow. So you know what? Being a bit of a vintage clothing buff as you and I are, we basically harken back to the old Wild West, right? They had their bandana or their handkerchief around their neck, and when they wanted to hold up the stagecoach, when they wanted to protect themselves from dust, they would pull that up over their face, huh?
Well, and the difference is theirs were big and hot.
Big and hot, yeah.
Yeah, I've made mine out of rayon and gauze cloth. So trying to make it a little bit lighter.
I pointed that out as a bit of an intro to today's topic.
That's right. Well, today we're talking about marketing through the mask. I mean, gosh, we've had such a challenge with this. So we're talking about marketing through the mask, relationship marketing in an age of social distance. How about that? Right? Have you found a challenge in that, Jim, or have your people found a challenge with that?
You know, if someone were to sit down with a piece of paper and come up with the worst case scenario to put me in, this is it. I mean, I can't imagine a worse thing. I mean, I say that, listen, it could be a lot worse. And often in life, that's the best thing we can do is realize that, you know, no matter what the circumstances are, you make a decision. Are you going to be, you know, is it going to ride you or are you going to ride it? Who's going to ride that horse, right? A horse going to ride you. And the bottom line is, yes, it has greatly affected me and how I go about my business. That title, Director of Sales, Marketing, and Education for a international brand, it's national represented here. That was my job, was to go out and socially interact. I mean, every aspect of what I did as my vocation was to go out in the world and interact with people. Very little happened to me right here at this desk. That's right. So starting in April, that all changed. I went from 10% at my desk, 90% out in the world to completely flipped, you know, 90% at my desk and 10% out in the world. And the only out in the world I got was my wife and my kids. And Tim, believe it or not, I'm a pretty daggum good sales rep. They have not bought one thing from me. Not one.
Well, you know, to me, it's like if your thing is people and you need the relationships and you didn't want to be on the call or trying to send out emails or something like that, it's a real challenge to go out and build relationships. I see two of the biggest challenges that business face right now are creating those new relationships and then converting those relationships to revenue streams. And so, like, I wanted to hit on some of that today. By the way, listeners, please feel free to start commenting and asking questions because we'll answer those throughout the show. But in the meantime, we're going to kind of give you some ideas as to what you could do to market through the mask. Okay. Now, I think a lot of people do it yourself, DIY marketing. What does that look like on your end, Jim?
Well, again, I'm a huge proponent and a huge practitioner and prophet of relationship marketing. And the cornerstone of relationship marketing is relationships. and again, a lot of people might say, hey, in this modern day world, relationships have gone virtual, relationships have gone electronic. I prided myself on the fact that that's not the way I did it. I did not do it that way, right? I would do relationship marketing. I would go become so active in the community so quickly and so fast that people had no choice but to notice me and get to know me and realize what an asset I was in a relationship. And so when that has been yanked out from under me, when that has been pulled away, I have had to just basically convert that to the virtual world. But I'm also a bit long in the tooth and gray on the side panels here. Okay. And I grew up in a generation where a lot of things, a lot of business, a lot of prospecting, a lot of customer service happened over the telephone. And so I grew up in that generation and I honed those skills. I got good at that. And there's, just like in anything, there's a good way to do it and a bad way to do it. And I've got to go back to the drawing board. I spent this morning, you ready for this? I spent this morning making telephone calls. And
telephone
now these
calls, how is it not virtual meetings or virtual, all the different meetings that you face?
Yeah, well, here's the deal. Telephone calls, because I didn't have a relationship with these people.
Yeah.
They would think it kind of weird. I mean, think about it. Okay, if you have different layers of virtual relationship building, right? And you want to jump straight from, it'd be like saying, hey, I don't want to meet you. I don't want to shake your hand and say hello. Let's go on a date tomorrow. I mean, you just jump straight into it, right? I mean, hey, how are you doing? I want you to be on a live video call with me. Yep, that's right. Get up in the morning, put your clothes on, and let me see you in your living room. Let's go. I want to meet you. That's a bit of a jump, And so I was able to make these phone calls and start the relationship there. And again, Tim, in the good old days, that's the way we did it. I mean, you did a lot of that, right? And there's a right way and a wrong way to do it. And there's a good practice and bad practices. And there's ways that you come across, as a person of interest. And there's ways that you can accidentally come across as a person of bothersomeness. You're bothering me, right?
Right.
So yeah, we're going back to some of the old ways, some of the old tried and true ways.
As Zig Ziglar would say, you could be a prospect or a suspect.
That's right. Yeah.
I like that. By the way, Joe Silby says good stuff. He likes what we're talking about so far. So good to have you on the show with us, Joe.
Hi, Joe. How are you? All right.
And so, along those lines, though, let's talk a little bit about the difference between telephone call versus virtual call. I think it really plays well into what we're talking about. Maybe not right in line, but I think it's an important topic. So something I have done to circumnavigate that conversation, to make them feel more comfortable, is because the face-to-face has been taken away. I've even done this on LinkedIn. Let's talk about the DIY part, to do it yourself. So I was reaching out to loose connections on LinkedIn, and some of them were brand new, but I would ask for 10 minutes to learn how to help one another grow, and then give them the choice of, would you like to speak virtually or on the phone? And I would say a good 75% took the virtual, and I was surprised by that. And so, and some of them said virtual at first, and then something came up and maybe they just, took the screen part off, but we still were able to talk. But to me, that helped replace some of that face-to-face. And really, it opened up avenues that I probably wouldn't normally have taken, because I would have been focused on the live face-to-face, not on the virtual face-to-face. Mm-hmm. So, and then on top of that, the way I was putting it, I think a lot of people face call reluctance. And so if you've got somebody that faces call reluctance and they would rather talk face-to-face, at least giving them that choice makes it where you have a better probability of operating in your strength of face-to-face versus on the phone. I don't know, just a thought there.
Yeah, and again, you always want to be playing to your strengths and not putting yourself in a situation to emphasize your challenges. Okay.
Right. Right.
Listen, I'm just a country boy from South Louisiana, and I'm sure people can tell by listening to me. I certainly wouldn't win any Grammy awards if I went and spoke at Yale. They would probably haul me out by a big old cane pole. But I am comfortable speaking on camera, right? If you know for a fact that you're not, if you're nervous about that, then probably what you should do is figure out if that's going to work for you or not. Because I have been on some virtual calls during this thing that were painful. Painful maybe is not a strong enough term. They were torture. And part of being self-aware and understanding who we are, you would not want to put me in the accounting pit at a major accounting firm. That would lead to disaster. That would lead to you losing your accounts, okay? Because that's not my strength. That's not
Right.
what I shine at, right? Now, my wife is wonderful with numbers, and it just makes sense to her, and she doesn't look at it as torture. She looks at it as entertaining, and she enjoys it, right? But guess
Right.
what? She wouldn't be on this call right now to save her little two front toes. She would hate being on this call. She would do it if she had to, but that uncomfortability would transfer. So, just know who you are, know your strengths, know what you bring to the table. If you're comfortable with this, then get out there and promote this. Start offering live Facebook webinars and this, that, and the other, and getting on there and offering live Zoom calls and all that great stuff. But you need to ask somebody who has no vested interest in the answer to be honest with you. Did everybody catch that? No vested interest in the answer. So if you look at your wife and say, honey, how do I look on video? Does my energy transfer on video? Would somebody see my video and want to buy my product? Your wife's going to go, yeah, honey, yeah. And so will your mama, okay? You need to ask somebody who has no vested interest. Don't ask an employee, yes, sir, boss, you look great. Don't ask one of your people that count on you for money, a vendor or something like that. Go 3 steps out of that circle. Separate yourself three circles out and find somebody and say, listen, I want you to watch me on this video. You tell me, does this make you want to buy my product?
Right.
And if they say, as a matter of fact, it makes me want to tune off, right? Go the different path. Maybe you need to work the phones. Maybe you should do more social media as far as direct advertising or something like that. This medium is getting overused, Tim. The Zoom calls. I shared with Tim before we started talking that I do part of my job as educator. I teach ASID and architectural firms about topics unique to our trade, right? And when this whole thing first started, we hosted a big virtual class, right? Invited architects and designers from all over the country. Hundreds of people signed up. And we kept hosting these. The last one we did, we had 4 people signed up. People are getting burned out by this a little bit. So definitely be aware of that.
I think you're right. And really that kind of falls into that, I don't know, for several, the virtual calls are really what's doing it. I think the Zooms and the webinars and all that kind of stuff, they have fatigue in that and they're ready to see each other face to face, but that brings up the done with you aspect of this. If we're trying to face two of the biggest challenges of creating those new relationships and then converting those to revenue streams, gosh, that's a pretty hard conversation if you're trying to make every conversation a sales conversation, and eventually people are going to start pushing away from you. I've actually seen this within the 3 Million% program. Some are just so aggressive that people are pushing back, saying, hey, I'd rather not have a one-on-one conversation with you because it's sounding different, right? And if you don't have those people in your life to speak hard truth into one another that have no vested interest, then you could be in trouble. You could be hurting yourself and not even know it. So really, as this done for you aspect, this strategy for the relationship marketing, I would say look into the peer advisory program, like what 3 Million% has, or let's see, masterminds or anything like that. I mean, there's several different things you could do out there. Uh, our program, our peer advisory program, has really become more of the structure than the strategy now, because we meet in small groups of, let's say, 5 to 10 businesses at a time, and so they actually go into these relationship marketing strategies with each other and speak hard truth into one another and ask questions and offer ideas and things like that. It isn't intended to be a commercial, but this is actually a strategy and a tactic that we use to develop referral generation. This isn't networking anymore, right? I think we're past networking. I mean, really, I almost don't like attending these virtual networking groups, or events. And I mean, I host them, right? But it's getting harder and harder because, like you say, people are tired of attending that stuff. And so it makes it very interesting. But if you're deepening relationships quickly and you're having good quality, hard conversations that are impacting your business like right away, you could implement just right away. That's different, and if you're starting to get referrals from that too, those are the new relationships that you needed, and that's the conversion that you needed too. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it is sometimes liberating to be able to work with a group of people that you're a bit outside of their normal circle, because what that can afford you is a certain amount of honesty. You can be very transparent and you can be honest. When I'm dealing with people that are within a tight circle, again, that I or them or both are financially dependent on one another, that puts a certain layer of it is what it is. It's there, right? And so for your people, for your members, and for our people that are watching right now, I can afford to be very direct, right? And I think that what this is showing, what this COVID-19 is showing us, is just showing us the places that we were weak, that we were not prepared for, that we had perhaps become lazy, we had become complacent.
We might have even been dressed for it.
Yeah, we might have. Yeah, I mean, we just were, the other day I found, it's been more than that. It's been a few weeks ago, but I was very frustrated, and I found myself uttering that sentence, right? The sentence that we all have found ourselves uttering, man, I just wish things could go back to the way they were, right? Why? So I could just be ungrateful for it again? This has taught me some extremely valuable lessons, and it's taught me some lessons about my business. Some areas that we just were weak. The gun walls of that ship were mighty thin. And so when those waves started hitting, when that rough sea started happening, man, we started leaking, right? And so if people are realizing that their networks, we talked about this, right, Tim, that their networks are shallow. They have not been out there tending those gardens, have they? They've become complacent. I mean, man, this economy was blowing and going. And man, I've got friends that were in the real estate industry. I got friends that were in other direct sales situations, and they were sloppy, man. They were sloppy. Wouldn't get back to people 2-3 days. I'm talking sales reps. These were people wanting to give them orders, right? And they weren't getting back to them for a couple of days. Those same people now, like you say, are becoming a little desperate. And they're reaching into those network groups and they're realizing, man, I don't have a big network. I don't have a big pool of people. We talked about this before the call too, right? We talked about the choir, right? Remember that old saying, especially as Southern guys, we remember this, right? Oh, you preaching to the choir. That was always had a negative connotation to it, right? Like it's easy to preach to the choir if you've already won them over. Well, number one, it's not a bad idea to preach to the choir every once in a while, right? Just because they're your choir, just because maybe you're taking them for granted, you might turn around one day, half your choir is gone because they got tired. You never talked to them and they just left, right? They didn't show up anymore. You might go, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to sing from the hymnal number such and such, such and such. Here we go. Your choir's gone, right? You got nobody singing. So you got to turn around and preach to them every once in a while. one of my folks just this morning was complaining. He says, man, my pipeline's dried up. I don't have any, I can't get out there and market. I can't get out there and talk to people. I can't get out there and meet with people. They got the doors locked. I can't. I said, well, man, what if, when you called your 25 existing clients, people that have given you money in the past, right? When you called those 25 people last week, what did they say? How's their business doing? Nothing. Because he hadn't been preaching to his choir. So that's one of the things, how do I market with the mask? Well, maybe you need to be spending time on those networks that the mask is not going to scare them.
Right.
You walk into a business you've never been into with a mask on right now, what are you doing? Oh, that ain't gonna work so well. You got to walk into some place that even though you got the mask on, they know your eyes, man. See, Tim, if Tim had a mask on, I still know Tim. I know Tim for 20 feet away. It don't matter if he had a mask on, right?
And you can tell if I'm smiling, even if I have on a mask.
I know. That's what I said. They said, Bardwell, I can see that mustache behind that mask.
Yeah.
So I encourage my people right now that, you need to get back to your network. You need to get back to your choir. You need to go back to people that you've done trade with in the past and love on them. Find out how they're doing. Find out how this thing's affecting their business, their livelihood. If you're an insurance agent, call every single one of your clients and find out how this thing's affecting them. You don't want to find out that they've dropped their policy from corporate when you get an email that said that they just dropped their policy because they lost their job 2 months ago and can't afford to pay the premiums. That's too late. You've lost them. I've had some phone calls from some of the people that I have financial dealings with, and it originated from them. They called to ask me how I was doing. They called to ask me if there was anything they could do to help. I know my insurance friends on this call right now will probably get a big shock out of this. Out of the blue, my insurance company called me and gave me a refund because they knew I wasn't going nowhere, right? My vehicle wasn't being driven, right? And that was a great call. Look at here, I'm sitting here telling you about it right now, right? And so that's what I've really been pushing. Anybody I'm talking to, get into your network. Get into your network you've already got, the people that are not going to be afraid of a mask, and they want to help you. They'll help you. I promise you they will.
Yeah, in bringing up that point, I would go to the people who know you without a mask, right? And I think you were saying that, but I think you got cut out a little bit. But go to the people who know you without a mask, who know your heart, they know your heart for them, and go back to them and just build deeper. Double down on those relationships, and really to get into the third aspect of this is what people are doing. I think those with the shallow relationships, what they've counted on in the past, may not be working for them now. So they've counted on for this done for you relationship marketing that really looks more like branding or advertising. And so they've been doing a lot of that and not developing these relationships. So whenever the branding isn't working because things have changed in the lives of their customers or their clients, they are scrambling around for these referral relationships and not really there. And you say, well, okay, what is done for you look like? I mean, again, branding, advertising, lead generation services, possibly lead generation lists, those types of things. Now there's a place for them. Like if the business is big enough, they might not need the relationships, and they need people to know they're still there, right? So that's
Absolutely.
where the advertising or the branding really comes into play. But if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a small business, you desperately need those relationships. You need new ones. You need depth fast. That would be my encouragement to people: is go as deep as you can, as fast as you can, and try to build out these relationships. My goal was always to try to go 1 or 2 levels deep into their networks to try to generate referrals from them. And so that's how you go into a referral based business as opposed to just transactional. What are your thoughts on that, Jim?
Well, anybody that claims to have made a living in the hallowed career of sales at some point, just like the last call I talked about how I sold Cutco, right? At some point, you've done door to door. Well, at some point, a lot of us have sold automobiles. Yes, I had a very short stint in the automobile industry. Well, as a matter of fact, my Zig Ziglar story starts in the automobile industry. I was a young guy, started off at a dealership in a small town, and they said, "Well, listen, young man, you want to learn about sales? We're going to put you over here in the break room. I'm going to set up this VCR, and you're going to watch these tapes by this guy named Zig Ziglar, and he's going to teach you all about sales." So I was young. I did whatever they told me to do. Tim, if they'd have told me to go out and stand in the parking lot on my head, I'd have done it because I didn't know any better, right? I was pliable. I was dumb. I was young. I didn't know. So I sat at that desk in that horrible smelling break room that smelled like cigarettes and peanuts and stale coffee, and on that vinyl chair, and watched those tapes. And they were old tapes. They'd been played so often, they were horrible tapes. But I watched Mr. Zig Ziglar. And when I was done watching, I watched every single one of them back to back over about 3 or 4 day period. I went over to my sales manager and I said, "Okay, boss, I've watched every single one of those tapes." He goes, "Great. You have any questions or comments about them?" I said, "I do have one question. Have any of you guys ever watched them?" Because there was nobody in that building that was doing anything close to what Mr. Ziglar said. They were all a bunch of cutthroats and scoundrels, and classic used car salesmen. These guys, I promise you, they had never watched a Zig Ziglar tape in their life, because their mission wasn't to help other people get what they want. Their mission was to get over on as many people as they could, right? So that was my first thing. The second thing I learned about car sales is the power of networks. I didn't know anybody, Tim. I wasn't from that town. It was a very small town. I didn't know anybody, right? And so one of the old managers, or department managers, he came over to me and said, I tell you what, young man. He says, "We have a referral program here at Don Shetler Ford. Anybody that's an existing Don Shetler Ford client, customer, if they've ever bought a car from us, if they send somebody in here and they buy a car, we give them $250. Now, that might not sound like a bunch of money now, but back almost 30 years ago, that's quite a bit of money. $250. I said, "Man, they're making more money on that sale than I am, right?" And so I got excited about that. And he says, "I tell you what, go back there in the accounting office, and they got all these file cabinets. That's how long ago it was. File cabinets. And they got everybody that's bought a car from us in them file cabinets. Okay. Go back 24 months, at least 24 months, anywhere from 24 months to 36 months. And you just start calling everybody in those file cabinets. Start at A and go all the way to Z. And you call them up. You congratulate them on purchasing their Don Shetler Ford car. Ask them if they're enjoying it. Make sure they're taking advantage of their free tire rotation and oil changes, and remind them that they could get $250 if they send somebody in to buy a car." And guess what, Tim? I was young enough, dumb enough, and not so much of an ego that I did exactly what that guy told me to do. And you know what's crazy? You ready for this?
Yeah.
Within 2 months, I was the top salesman at that Ford dealership. Within 2 months. Because $250, there was a lot of people that said, "Oh, well, man, I get $250. Yeah, I'll tell my aunt she's looking for a car." And I said, "Well, I got what what's your aunt's name? Give me her phone number." What was cool back then, when people gave you a phone number, you actually could call them and they would answer. Yeah. You know what I mean? It was crazy. You call a phone number and they would answer. Yeah. And so you could actually do stuff pretty quickly. Somebody gives you a phone number now, 3 years before you get in touch with them. But that works, man. Get in your file cabinets, guys. Get on your computers. Get into your phones. Get into your go back 24 months. Every single person that spent one dime with you, I don't care if it's your biggest account, your smallest account, if they've done trade with you, if they have a relationship with you, just call them up and tell them that you're thinking about them and that you appreciate them and you appreciate them for whatever trade they've given you. Well, Jim, I'm an insurance agent, and they canceled their policy 2 months after we signed it up. I don't care. Call them up. Well, Jim, they're not going to answer. You're right. They're probably not going to answer. Have a script. Leave them a nice voicemail. Brighten their day. Hi there. I'm Jim Bardwell, and man, 2 years ago, we set up a little insurance policy. And I just want to tell you, I was thinking about you today. This is challenging times we living in. And I just want to tell you how much I appreciated that business then. And I would love to help you with any of your insurance needs now, or any of your friends or relatives. By the way, I have a thank you program. If you send any of your relatives to me, you get a free steak dinner down at Jimmy's House of Steak. Here's my phone number. Call me back if you have any questions. That sure beats sitting around going, man, I sure wish the network.
Gosh, Jim, it sounds like people need to hire us for coaching today.
What's that?
Said it sounds like they need to hire us for coaching if they're not getting this part.
I tell you, and what's funny is I think everybody gets this part, Tim.
If you heard me.
Yeah, you're breaking up just a little bit. I think everybody gets this part. It's not the getting that's the trick. It's the doing that's the trick. And right now we have no excuse. There's no excuse. Everybody should be ready for some doing. Okay. Most of the people I talk to are complaining about not having enough work, not having enough clients, not having enough. They've got time. So they should have time to do stuff like this.
Right. Now is the time. And I'll tell you what, something else that you just made me think about is, I don't know what you're seeing in Tennessee, but in the DFW area, where we're hearing of rising cases and stuff like that. And if that happens, though, the ones that were most successful last time had a pipeline going into this thing, right? So no matter what happens, I would encourage to be able to survive if we have another quarantine or something like that. I'm not trying to scare anybody, I'm trying to help you prepare mentally, emotionally, financially. But you set up that pipeline. The most successful ones that I saw come through our 3 million % peer advisory program had pipelines coming into that quarantine and lasted them several months, where when they came out on the other side, they were still rocking and rolling.
Yeah. And again, I've talked about this many times to my people that, this is a shakedown cruise, man. And, the purpose of a shakedown cruise is to figure out what's not tied down tight. You take that ship and you turn it all the way to port, and you turn it all the way to starboard, and you flip that wheel back and forth, and you don't get upset when stuff flies off the wall, because that's the point of it. Okay. If you're finding that in your business right now, if you're finding that you don't have deep networks, if you're finding that your clients will drop you like a hot potato the first time the bank account gets a little low, okay, that whatever product, good, or service you're selling is not high priority. It's not, I can't live without it. You'd be surprised. People say, well, Jim, some things just, they're a luxury item. People can't live without it. I'm talking about people like insurance agents. I'm talking about people like financial advisors. I'm talking about people like medical professionals. I'm talking about people like that sell stuff that people need. They absolutely need it. Okay. And if you're losing clients because money gets a little tight, well, again, we've got to start figuring out what are we failing to do to ensure that we are an important part of their life. I don't have a problem with saying this, guys, it's a lot easier to cut the rope on somebody if you don't know who they are. Okay.
Isn't that true?
If you don't have a deep relationship with your clients, if your clients don't understand that you care about them and you want to help them, and you want to help them any way you can, I've had many of my folks call me up and say, man, I'm sorry, Jim. I know I normally put an order in right now, but I can't right now. I just, things are tough and we're having troubles. And, I don't go, oh, okay, well, I'll talk to you next month, Bob. See you later. Bye. That's not going to work right now. What you've got to do is realize that, they're looking for community. They're looking for somebody to ask for help. Tim and I were joking before the call. I said, it's funny how, Tim, man, your relatives and your fast friends and everybody, man, if you ever need anything, Tim, I'll be there for you, brother. I'm your friend for life. Known you, man. I'm tried and true. If you need something, you call me. And I said, Tim, pull a big old U-Haul up in front of your house and watch your friends disappear like cockroaches. I mean, man, you pull a U-Haul up in front of your house, you can't find a friend. You'll go through your whole database. Nobody will answer the phone. How do they know the U-Haul's in front of your house? They ain't answering the phone. It's almost like an APB went out across your contact list on your phone. Bardwell's got a U-Haul in front of his house. He's going to ask you to help him move, right? And so you find out real fast. And so same thing in the business world. When things get a little tight, when things get a little rough, when things get a little tough, are we really there for our clients?
Right.
Are we really, really there for them? I've seen the best and I've seen not so good in my own personal life. I've called people and said, hey, is there anything you can do to help me? And they said, you know what? You have been a 12-year client, 12 years. This is your second automobile you financed with us. Okay. Yes, we can help you, Mr. Bardwell. Absolutely we can. Right. And I've heard other people, that's not the answer they got, and so it's really teaching all of us a lot, isn't it, Tim? It really is. And we're finding out why people are in business. Why are you really in business? Are you really in business to help people? Or are you really, you're an insurance agent. You're there to protect them against fires and floods and locusts and all kind of crazy stuff. Oh, COVID-19. Sorry, can't help you. You don't pay your premium. I ain't your insurance agent.
Right. Right. Something I guess to speak into, get back to the mask part. You're talking about learning who's really there for you and who's not. Right. Well, I think we, as business owners, entrepreneurs, or even sales professionals, I think they need to watch what they're messaging as well. Because I think, let's say you have a bad attitude about wearing a mask or something like that, and you're making these posts on social media or something along those lines, you're sending messages, whether you want to or not, to potential clients or customers. And so now, granted, they may have a different perspective than you or something along those lines, but exactly what you're saying about the whole U-Haul thing, they seem to know. Well, I think you can also signal whether you're in trouble or not too. You can signal where there is strength in your business or weakness in your business. And if you're sending signals of weakness, this is actually the important part about the peer advisory groups, is you want someone who to speak into that, to say, hey man, I saw where you quit this, or you made this post or something along those lines. I just encourage you to change your messaging because this is how it may have been perceived, and so I think that kind of stuff is important too. Just watch your messaging, watch your signals for strength or weakness, and really, I mean, I'm seeing social media just because they've taken such a strong stance one way or the other. And they say, well, I've still got half of the people on there. Okay, well, you lost probably anybody that would do business with you on the other half of whatever that stance was.
Yeah, I've always looked at it this way. Grandma always told us, right? When you go to a dinner party, you don't bring up religion, you don't bring up politics, and you don't bring up the hostess's food. Okay, you steer clear of those three topics, right? Because no matter what you say, you're going, yeah, man, I tell you, that was the best casserole I ever had. Oh, you kidding me? That was the worst casserole I ever tasted. That had way too much ketchup in it. I mean, you never talk about those three things. And there's some real truth there, man. Because again, why are you at a dinner party? Is it a political rally? No, it's a dinner party. Okay. Well, Bardwell, I'll tell you what, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for everything. And all those other sayings that people like to throw up when you even start talking like this. What are you in business for? What are you in business for? I'm in business to provide unparalleled access to the world's most technologically advanced, environmentally friendly protection system. That is what I'm in business for. I am not a politician. I am not a religious institution. I am not a think tank. I am not a group of, that's not what I'm in business for, right? And so if I'm acting or putting something out there that in any way, shape, or form compromises my commitment to fulfilling that mission statement I just recited to you guys, am I being a good steward of my business? No. And then there's the whole other side of this. You'll get way more flies with honey than you do with vinegar. If you say, no, my business exists to win people over to the right way of thinking, you're never going to win anybody over with a stick. It is not going to happen. Okay. Now, if you're okay with that, you go, well, I'm not winning them over. I'm trying to keep them away from me. I don't want those kind of people. Mission accomplished. That's what a stick's good for. You want to keep people away from you, a stick works really well for that. You want to attract people. You want people to come in and maybe, just maybe, hey, here's a crazy thought. Tim, you ready for this one? Maybe if they actually got to know you and saw the benefit of your beliefs and ideals and way of looking at the world, saw the benefit in your life, they might do something crazy, like one day go, hey, Tim, I admire you. You seem like a great guy and a friendly guy. You have a wonderful relationship with your wife. People like you a lot. And by the way, you told me that if I stood on my head every 10 minutes, stood on my head for a minute, the world would be a better place. Tell me more about that. See, that's how that works. That's how that works, right? And so in business, absolutely, especially right now, marketing through the mask, probably not the best idea to be getting out there on social media and railing it for or against. Against, right? How about getting out there on social media and bringing up again, what is your purpose? Why are you in business? Tim, you were a financial advisor, correct?
That's right.
And there are a lot of folks. There are a lot of folks that got really taken advantage of by bad financial advice, right? So you had a mission. You were protecting those people, right? You weren't going to do that. You wouldn't give them horrible advice. I mean, there's people out there running Ponzi schemes calling themselves financial advisors. There's some really desperados out there, right? Same thing in my industry. In the carpet and rug cleaning industry, we got some real knuckleheads. How am I ever going to protect the public from getting, messed over by those guys if I'm not attracting, if I'm not bringing people in so that they can get to know me and get to know my business and get the benefit of doing trade with me? So yes, marketing through the mask, I definitely would not be. And I know, listen, Tim, people are frustrated right now, right? People are really frustrated and they're tense. Okay, we got a question.
That's right. Yeah, Nate Munson asked, what's the balance between being transparent in your message, but also avoiding your weakness?
Well, listen, I look at it this way. The burden of leadership takes many forms. Okay, the burden of leadership takes many forms. Let's take, for example, a lot of people on this call will relate to this. Say you're a parent, right? You got kids at home. You're the leader. You're the leader of that household. Is it a good idea to go in there and tell your kids all the bloody ins and outs and every detail of the day? Probably not. Know why? They don't need to know all that. Now, if it's something that's going to directly affect them, so say Nate, your client is going to be directly affected by something that's going on in your industry, by something that's going on with your company, by your business. You absolutely doggone right. I'm going to be as transparent as possible about that, right? And I'm going to craft a good message that doesn't call doomsday down, but lets people know. One part of our product is it creates a bacteriostatic environment on anything it's applied to. Now, am I going to social media and running ad after ad after ad, scaring people to death about this virus? No, I'm not doing that. But I certainly am letting people know that there's a benefit associated with my product that could help with that. That wouldn't be doing a good service if I didn't, right, Tim?
That's right.
And so, you're right, Tim. Excuse me, Nate. That's exactly what it is. I love the word you use there because it's perfect. Balance. You definitely want to give them enough information if it's going to directly affect them, but you also don't want to point out your weaknesses so that they lose faith in you.
Yeah, I would encourage to speak in your strengths as well, not just speak to your strengths, but also I think that's the important though, finding out exactly what they need. Trying to find out why they're talking to you. What is it that they needed from your brand, your product, your service, whatever it was. What can you help them with? And that way you can actually speak to how you might benefit them, as opposed to having to just share everything, right? I think actually one thing that I'm going to say veteran financial advisors coach younger financial advisors on is these financial advisors or even insurance agents, they come out of their training with this overload of information, and in search of credibility, what they do, I hate to be so crude in saying this, but kind of a common term in the industry is they throw up on people's shoes, right? Somebody asks them a question and they tell everything they know about it, right? Even though that might not have been what was originally asked. And so they've overexplained all this time wasted that they needed was to understand, maybe what their circumstance was. And so even in all of that explaining, you can over explain, expose a weakness. But if you take the time to find out why, take Simon Sinek's advice here and start with why. Why do they need to talk to you? Why are they doing what they're doing? Just start with why and then work backwards. Then find out, then you could explain the how you could help them and then what you're going to do about it. But that's a way to, I'd say, navigate around having to be transparent about all strengths and weaknesses, find out why they need what they need, how to help them to get it, and what to do about it. Right. So that would be my response on that.
Well, one thing that I learned very early in my career, there's a difference between addressing a client's concerns or fears, right, and transferring your concerns and fears to them. Okay. True. And a lot of times we make the mistake of basically we're transferring our fears, our concerns to the client they didn't even have. It wasn't even on their radar, right?
But now it is.
Now it is. I remember I was early in my career in the cleaning and rug and restoration industry. I went out on a job with this gentleman, been doing a long time. And as soon as the client would open the front door, he would go straight to cat urine. Like no collect go, no pass go, collect your $200. I mean, he went straight to cat urine. And cat urine is yucky, man. It's gross. And of course people don't want, these people don't even own a cat. Why are you jumping right into how cat urine destroys people's rugs? There ain't a cat to be found, man. Why are you going there? You know what I mean? And the weird thing about cat urine, all of us, by the time we reached adulthood, we've smelled cat urine, right? We've smelled a house that somebody had a cat that was bad, right? And so as soon as you say the word, I guarantee it just happened on this call. As soon as you say the words cat urine, everybody in their mind goes, that stinks, right? I don't even want to think about. Well, no, they don't want to think about that, right? But for some reason, he had it in his head that was the end all. That was the most horrible thing that could happen to a rug. So why not address that right out of the gate, right? And so, Nate, I think that, again, I will compliment you on the fact that you basically opened with the perfect way of looking at that. It is a balance, and not to be one way or the other way. We don't want to be, like you say, throwing up all of our cares, concerns, and the COVID-19 is going to destroy everything. But we also want to give them enough information that will address their true concerns and their fears.
And their concerns are not always, or your concerns are not always their concerns. So you want to hold those back to start to find out why they need what they need.
That's right. That's right.
All right. So any other questions from the audience, please feel free to comment or ask those questions in the comments. But Jim, any other ideas to share with us?
Well, again, sometimes the thing I end up so many topics with is this. How do I market through the mask? How do I build relationships in a socially distanced world? How do I improve my my pipeline, and when the pipelines are shut down, right? I mean, forget pipeline. The whole crude oil industry shut down, right? I mean, they're not pumping it, they ain't refining it, the ships have stopped. I mean, when you talking about pipeline drying up, there ain't no oil, right? This is it. This is it. Do something. So many people I'm talking to right now, Tim, they're paralyzed. They're just not doing anything. Or whatever they're doing it half-hearted. Listen, I would rather you do something small, but with all your effort, committed to it, doing a good job at it, right? Like you say, all these people with all these automated advertising programs, or making phone calls, or making gift baskets to people, or sending people gift cards in the mail, or sending people constant contact emails with tips on how to get through this and all that stuff. They're all fantastic, right? Marketing with the mask. Just don't stop doing it, okay? And don't stop being active in your business. I mean, so many people, Tim, I'm calling them up and saying, tell me what you got going on. What you doing? Oh, I'm not doing much, man. Ain't nothing much happening. Well, then do something. Take some type of action. I would rather go to the box having struck out than go to the box because I got, the guy threw 4 strikes at me and I didn't even swing, right? I'd rather have swung 1, 2, 3. I mean, than to just sit there holding the bat. Well, that ball's moving awful fast, and I don't know, even if I hit it over there, there's COVID-19 over in that town. If I hit the ball, I got to run that way, and I think I'm just going strike. Oh, well, maybe I'll swing it. You see what I'm saying? Do something. Take action.
I think a lot of times what I'm seeing is people are waiting on things to return to normal. And I that could be a long wait. To me, the paradigm has shifted. And so back to your pipeline analogy, instead of using oil, I like to use water, because people have been used to a steady flow of water from a source that they could count on.
Yep.
Right. And there is no more water running through the pipeline. So now's the time to go dig freshwater wells.
Mm-hmm.
Right. You've got to think about this completely differently than you have before. So the where to dig wells is in the land that you already know well, right? In the relationships that you already know. Go dig deeper. Go dig deeper into their lives, get to know them better, and develop referral generating sources out of the people that you already know. And that's where we have the structure, the peer advisory structure. We can help you do that. But I encourage you to do that, right? Because at least that's the something that could really help you.
Yeah, and I'd like to end on this one. So there was a guy that was, man, I tell you, he kept striking out, man. The economy failed him. His skill set failed him. His father-in-law tried to help him by setting him up in business as a shopkeeper and a saddle salesman, and that business failed. Imagine your father-in-law, Tim, sets you up with a business and you run it into the ground. Okay. And a chain of events happened. Now, again, if you'd have went back into that time period in Illinois and set that man down and said, what do you think? What do you think life's going? Life's going good. Great. It was a recession in the economy. Horrible, uncertain times. The country was literally being torn apart, not figuratively, but literally being torn asunder. And within under 20 years later, that man will become the president of the United States of America. The president, like there's no higher office, right? He became the president of the United States of America. And, I have gone through some challenges, and I've gone through some times where I've been sitting at this very desk, scratching my head, going, woe is me, woe is me. Why is this happening? Right? And I'll encourage everybody to realize that you just don't know why. Okay. But we don't have to. What we got to do is do what you can with what you got where you're at. And that's a quote from him. Do what you can with what you've got where you're at. And who knows? We might have somebody on this phone call right now, Tim, that in 15 years from now might be the president of the United States. Stranger things have happened. But
That's
I would
right.
just encourage everybody to, as far as marketing, as far as advertising, as far as that, do what you can with what you got right where you're at.
That's right. That's good encouragement, Jim. And I want to thank you all for joining us. You can continue to ask questions even after the show is over, and we'll get back to you on those. And if you have questions over 3 million% or over Fiber Protector America, Jim and I will have our email addresses in the comments. So we want you to reach out to us. Feel free to ask us questions personally, and we'll be glad to get back with you and help you grow in any way we can. So again, thanks for joining us, and catch us on our next live stream. We're on every Monday at 2 o'clock Central Time, and we look forward to seeing you then. We'll talk to you soon. Have a great day.
See everybody next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.